do you believe? Anger is a normal state of being or abnormal for a man?
I think it's a normal state of being. I think, we're built in with it and it has a useful purpose. But at the same time, it's going to take us away from peace. So we need to be more aware of it. I think no matter what, we always react emotionally. And I think the question is, how long is that emotional reaction going to be? Is it going to be 5 seconds or is it going to be 5 days? And the quicker we can adjust our reactions and turn them to responses, the better off we are.
Amazing. I've noticed that men who have anger act like women. They act like their mothers. And it's like they have taken on their mother's identity. And so they're up and down emotional just like a woman. And so when they do, if and when they get married and date, they're unable to guide their woman out of the hell that she's in because she's living in hell, in the imagination. The imagination is angry. Have you noticed that about men? Because it is abnormal for a man to be angry. He has become like his mother, so he thinks that it's normal. Can a man help a woman if he's angry like she is?
So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, make the labels between the genders based off their emotions. I honestly believe anybody who gets angry for too long is acting like a child, more so than a specific man or a woman. And I believe that, it really boils down to tools. So when you're a child and you don't even have the vocabulary, you have these temper tantrums. You're at the store, you want a toy, you can't get the toy, you don't have the words to express that, you don't have the tools to breathe through it, so you just fall on the floor, start crying and screaming. And I feel like these tantrums that we have is because we don't know better ways. And then as we become adults, we make that even worse, whether we consume caffeine, whether we don't sleep enough, whether we do some other stuff. So when I look at it in terms of the men and the women stuff, definitely, women have, they're built different and they might have various hormones and they might experience emotions in a different way than men do. And I definitely think there's an important relationship between the two where, one can serve as chaos and one can serve as a container. But honestly, in my personal experience, I've seen it flip both ways. I've seen very calm women who have more tools to handle their emotions and men who just didn't have them for whatever reason growing up. And one helps the other. One is the kite, one is the string. And I wouldn't simplify it as it's always the man that has to do it for the woman, especially in my upbringing, and especially just as an adult, the various relationships I've witnessed.
Well, you do agree that men supposed to lead women, right? Men are the head of women. And if they have the same personality that she has, which is anger, how can he lead her out of the hell she's in if he has it too?
Well, when we do the Big Five personality assessment, women actually generally score higher in agreeableness, and men score lower. And agreeableness is you're less likely to be confrontational. So in that context, it's actually men that can end up being more angry and butt heads more. And then as well as us here being in North America, most of the original people that are from this part of the land, they were part of societies that were run by women, not men. And in my heritage too, there's a very simple line that says, it's not about the king, it's about who gave birth to the king. So where in my heritage, we don't view one superior to the other. We view it as a balance, and if anything, we can view women as superior.
And when you say your heritage, you mean the Sikhs or the Punjab? Oh,
no, it's Sikhs.
I noticed that. I noticed that in that culture, the men are very weak and the women rule.
No, so so again, Punjabi is the language. So to say Punjabi is like to say American, for example. I mean
the Sikh culture.
So, Sikh heritage is we're martial. So the men are we're fighters. So we're warriors.
I know, but they go out and fight physically, but when they get home, their woman beat them up. She rules.
No, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I think you're mixing this up with somebody else.
What is the Punjabi culture like? What's that like?
So Punjab, Punj means 5, Ab means river. So to be Punjabi is to be from the 5 rivers. So that's the area in North India with the 5 rivers. The Punjabi culture, and you can be a Punjabi Christian, you can be a Punjabi Muslim, you can be a Punjabi Hindu. Punjabi is just your language. And then most Punjabis, because they live around these rivers, are farmers. So it's a farmer culture. So, and the interesting thing about being a farmer is kind of like working in oil out here in America. It's a very high paying job that doesn't require a lot of education. And it's hard labor, and with a lot of hard labor jobs, you work hard, you play hard. So the Punjabi culture in itself, it can have some of its challenges. And that's probably where you're going to start seeing some of the challenges in terms of the men and the women, where there's abuse of alcohol, where there's a patriarchy, where you may have domestic violence and stuff like that. And it was actually Sikh heritage that came in and came to balance that out, and came to say, like, it's kind of like how Christianity can come into America and kind of balance out, if people are eating too much fast food, or people are chasing too much possessions or monetary or greed. You need a faith, or you need a way of life to kind of balance that out, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Protestant, whether you're a Catholic. And it's the same thing over there in Punjab. So Punjab's a part of the world where you got people trying their best with whatever tools they have. And Sikhi is a philosophy that came out of that, because the history before Sikhi came there, you had a Hindu majority with a Muslim ruler. And the Muslim ruler was just trying to convert everybody. So you had a lot of oppression. And, Sikhi kind of came out of this idea that you got to stand up for yourself. But at the same time, a lot of these rituals and beliefs that people have around religion, they're for show. They're more so to show your neighbor that you're a pious individual, and less so to actually do anything to better yourself as a person. And to better yourself a person, oftentimes it just requires you to sit down quietly in a room and calm the mind. So we talk about 5 different things that take you from your peace: Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, God, your anger, your lust, your greed, attachment, and your ego. These are 5 things that we're all built with.
But it sounds like you don't believe. It sounds as though you don't believe that you can have perfect peace.
The way I look at it is, peace is a state that you work towards. I don't believe in this happily ever after, and I don't believe in eternal peace in this context. I look at it as, it's kind of like, if you grow up in a rough neighborhood, everything you need to do to survive in that neighborhood becomes a tool that helps you. And then you grow up, and let's say you start working at an office job. All those things that helped you in the street, or all of those things that made you, you had to have a certain level of aggression, you had to carry yourself a certain way. Now they work against you, because now you're in a different environment. So I look at it the same way. Sometimes your anger is your best friend. Sometimes it's your worst enemy. Sometimes your ego is your best friend. Sometimes it's your worst enemy. And I think the salvation comes in the awareness. Salvation doesn't come in conquering any of this. It comes in being aware of it. So if I'm driving and somebody cuts me off and I get really upset, being aware that I'm upset, and then having options to deal with that. Do I smash on my horn? Do I roll down my window and give them the middle finger? Do I chase them down? Or do I hold my breath for 5 seconds? Or do I think about a family member and start focusing on gratitude? It's the choices that we make. We always have control over our effort and our choices. And I think that journey is what's important.
At some point, when you want to overcome all that, because it's hell living that way. We were not created to live that way. We were created to live on earth in peace, perfect peace at all times, through all situations. But would you rather have perfect peace than to be in and out like that?
I've just never seen it. I've never seen it. And I think the other interesting thing is everything that we have in life, including the fact that me and you are having this conversation, we're having a conversation over the internet. The internet was invented through war. If we had peace, we wouldn't have the internet.
But if they had peace, there would be no war. But let me ask, so
then we wouldn't have had no internet.
You don't think so?
No, and most computing, even Alan Turing, a lot of the computers were invented for war.
But your best creation come in peace and not in war.
The best art comes from peace, not war. I'm not sure about technology and innovation.
Do you amazing?
Think about the airplane. Like the airplane, they were working on it, but then it excelled when we hit the wars. The internet, the computational power excelled when they needed to do, when they realized that, hey, if I shoot a missile in Germany, with the temperature in the air, it goes one way. But when I shoot that same one in Morocco, or I shoot that in Somalia, because of the temperature in the air is different. So now I have to make stronger computers to be able to equate this. When Russia launched Sputnik, which was their satellite, America got scared, and because it was a Cold War. And then they funded these universities, and these universities, to speak to each other through computers, eventually invented the internet. So I think that's the beauty of creation is, we can't just simplify it as good or bad, because sometimes these things that we consider our enemies end up creating some of the most important innovations for the future. It's like
Amazing.
when you solve one problem, you create another one. And that's kind of this existence that we have.
So do you believe that do you believe you are your ego?
I believe, yeah. I
You,
believe my ego is what makes me feel separate from everything else in creation.
and where did you get your ego from?
That's a great question. I think it's a natural phenomenon that we're born with because it serves the purpose for our survival.
And so where would it have come from when you were born if you claim that it's your own? Where
I
did
mean, I don't have to take ownership over the ego for it to exist. You know, I don't have to take ownership over my nose for it to exist. It exists. And I also feel like if the answer is I don't know, that doesn't mean I get to fill in the blank with an answer that was written in an old scripture. So I think, you know, the need to identify separately, you know, I think over time has really kind of come from our need to survive. And I feel like that's where a lot of our a lack of peace comes from, because also the way that you and I are living now isn't very common compared to people who lived in small communities for 10,000 years. So a lot of the skills that we have etched in our DNA are really useful for small communities, but they're not useful for living in these big cities. That's why we care about what people think about us, and that's why we're worried, self-esteem and all that stuff.
Are you happy with your ego? Are you happy having that?
I mean, I try not to have an opinion on it because it's not something I can control in that context. It's like saying, are you happy with your nose? You know, I have it and I have to find out where it's beneficial and I have to find out where it gets in the way. And I think in that same context, it's the ego. You know, I view the ego as like that membrane that keeps me separate from the rest of the ocean. And, you know, we have these moments where the ego melts. You know, you fall in love for the first time. All of a sudden, there's no you and that other person. You guys become one. And I think there's a lot of these moments, and people sometimes get that through meditation. People definitely achieve it through taking various plant medicines. And I think having these unique experiences is what's worth exploring. But also at the same time, realizing that when I view me separate from you, that creates a lot of tension and chaos. You know, when I see someone on the street and I think they're different from me, you know, that creates a lot of tension and chaos. I'm trying to be aware of that.
So you don't believe that it's possible to have peace because you have not seen it.
I've never met somebody at complete peace all the time in my entire life. I hear stories about people, but I mean, I know I hear stories about people that I know that aren't true. So you tell me there was this individual who's completely perfect and without ego, or who's completely at peace. You know, at the bare minimum, I got to see it to believe it.
So you need to see it before you can believe it.
I mean, for me to adjust my entire life in that pursuit, definitely.